Chapter 2. My hated now withstand. I had to admit Dreamit Billy whatever was pretty smart. After they carted us off to the airport to and onto the academic's private jet, he got taken one look at the two of us whispering and ordered us separated. Don't let them talk to each other, he warned the guardian, who escorted me to the back of the plane. 5 minutes together, and they will come up with an escape plan. I showed him a naughty look and stormed off down the essay. Never mind the fact we have been planning escape. As it was, things don't look good for our heroes or heroines either. Once we were in the air, our odds of escape dropped further. Even suppressing a miracle occurred, and I did manage to take out all 10 guardians. We could sort of have a problem in getting off the plane. I figured they might have perched abroad somewhere, but in the unlikely event I could be able to operate one. 3. There was still that little issue of survival, seeing as we could probably land somewhere in the Rocky Mountains. No, we were not getting off this plane until it landed in the backward Montana. I could have to think of something then, something that involved getting past the academic's magical words and 10 times as many guardians. Yeah, no problem. Although Lisa sat at the front of the Russian guy, her fear sank back to me, pounding inside my head like a hammer. My concern for her cut into my fury. They could not take her back there, not that the place. I wonder if Dreamit might have hesitated if he could feel what I did, and if he know what I know. Probably not. He don't care. As it was, her emotions grew so stronger that for a moment I had been disorienting sensation of sitting in her seat, in her skin even. It happened sometimes, and without much warning, she could pull me right into her head. Dremit's tall frame sat beside me, and her hand, gripped a bottle of water. He leaned forward to pick up something, revealing 16 symbols tattooed on the back of his neck, Monshamax. They looked like two strikes of jagged lightning crossing in an X symbol, one for each Strigoi he could kill. Above them was a twisted line, sorts of the line a snake that marked him as a guardian, the promise mark. Blinking, I fought against her and shifted back into my own head with a grimace. I hated what that happened. Feeling Lisa's emotions was one thing, but slipping into her was something we both despaired. She saw it as an invasion of privacy, so I usually don't tell her when it happened. Neither of us could control it. It was another effect of the bond, a bond neither of us fully understood. Legends existed about f- psycho links between guardians and their moroi, but the stories has never mentioned anything like this. We fumbled through it as the best we could. Near the end of the flight, Drummond walked back to where I sat and traded places with the guardian beside me. I pointedly turned away, starting out the window. Absently, several moments of silence passed. Finally, he said, were you really going to attack us all? I don't answer. Doing that, protecting her like that, it was brave. He passed. Stupid, but still brave. Why did you even try it? I glanced over at him, brushing my hair out of my face so I could look him levelly in the eye. Because I'm a guardian. I turned back towards the window. After another quiet moment, he stood up and returned to the front of the jet. When we landed, Lisa and have no choice to let the commands drive us to Academic. Our car stopped at the gate, and our driver spoke with guardians who verified we were not Strigoi about to go off on a killing spree. After a minute, they let us pass on through the wards and up to the academic itself. It was another sunset, the start of the vampire day, and the campus lay wrapped in shadows. It probably looked the same, sprawling and gothic. The Morai was big on tradition. Nothing was changed with them. This school was not as old as the owns once back in Europe, but it had been built in the same style. The buildings boasted elaborate, almost church like architecture with high peaks and stone carvings. What iron gates enclosed small gardens and doorways here and there. After living on a college campus, I had a new appreciation for just how this place resembled a university more than a typical high school. We were on the second campus, which was divided into lower and upper schools. Each was built around a large open garden decorated with stone paths and enormous centuries old trees. We were going towards the upper school squad, which has academic buildings on one side while dampier dormitories and the gym sat opposite. Moroid rooms sat on the other ends, and the opposite them were the administrative buildings that also served the lower school. Younger students lived on the primary campus further to the west. Around all the campus we space, and more space. We were in the Montana after all, miles away from the any real city. The air felt cool in my lungs and smelled of pine and wet, decaying leaves. Overgrown forests just ringed the parameters of the academic, and during the day you could see mountains rising up in the distance. As we walked in the main part of the upper school, I broke from my guardian and ran up to Truman. Hey, Commander. He kept walking and would not look at me. You want to talk now? Are you taking us to Kirova? Headmistress Kirova, he corrected. On the other side of him, Lisa shot me a look that said, Don't start something. Head Headmistress Water. She is still a self-righteous old bitch. My words faded as the guardians lead us through a set of doors straight into the commons. I signed. Were these peoples really so cruel? There had to be at least a dozen ways to get to Kirova office, as they were taking us right through the center of the commons. And it was a breakfast time. Non-West guardians, jumpers like and Mora sat together, eating and socializing, faces alight with whatever current gossip held the academics' attention. When we entered, the loud buzz of conversation stopped instantly, like someone has flipped a switch. Hundreds of sets of eyes swirled towards us. I returned the stares of my former classmates with a lazy grin, trying to get a sense as to whether things has changed. Nope, don't seems like it. Camila Contona still looked like the prim, perfectly groomed bitch I remembered. Still the self-appointed leader of the academics royal Morai cliques of the side. Lisa's near cousin Natalie watched with wide eyes as innocent and navy as before. I know the other side of the room well. That was interesting. Oron, poor Oron, who could no doubt had his heart broken when Lisa left. He still looked as cute as ever, maybe more so now, with those same golden looks that complicated hers as well. His eyes followed her every move. Yes, definitely not over her. It was sad, really, because Lisa had never really been all that into him. I think she could gone out with him simply because it seems like the expected things to do. But what I found most interesting was that Oran has apparently found a way to pass the time without her. Beside him, holding his hand, was a Morai girl who looked about 11 but had to be older unless he could become a pedal during our absence. With plump little cheeks and bland ringlets, she looked like a proclaimed doll, a very pissed off, an evil proclaimed doll. She gripped his hand tightly and shot Lisa a look of such burning hatred that it stunned me. What the hell was that all about? She was no one I knew, just a jealous girlfriend, I guess. I could be pissed too if my guy was watching someone else like that. Our walk of a shame merciful ended, though our new setting, Headmistress Kirawa office, don't really improve things. The old hag looked exactly like I remembered, sharp nosed and grey haired. She was tall and slim, like most Moroi, and had always reminded me of a vulture. I know her well because I have spent a lot of time in her office. Most of our escorts left us once Lisa and I were seated, and I felt left a little less like a prisoner. One day, Alberta, the captain of the school's guardian, and the Dermot stayed. They took up positions along the wall, looking static and terrifying, just as their job description required. Kirova fixed her angry eyes on us and opened her mouth to begin what could no doubt be a major witch session. A deep, gentle voice stopped her. Wesley started. I realized there was someone else in the room I had not noticed, careless for guardian, even for a non-voice one. With a great deal of effort, Victor Doshwak rose from a corner chair. Prince Victor Doshwak. Lisa sprang up and ran to him, throwing her arm around his fragile body. Uncle, she whispered. She sounded on the verge of tears as she tightened her grip. With a small smile, he gently patted her back. You have no idea how glad I am to see you safe, Vesalis. He looked towards me, and you too, Rose. I nodded back, trying to hide how shocked I was. He had been sick when we left. But this was horrible. He was Natalie's father, only about 40 or so, but he looked twice that age, pale, withered, hands shaking. My heart broke watching him. With all the horrible people in the world, I don't seems fair that this guy could get a disease that was going to kill him young and ultimately keep him from becoming king. Although not technically her uncle, the Morai used family terms very loosely, especially the royals. Victor was a close friend of Lisa's family and had gone out of his way to help her after her parents had died. I liked him. He was the first person I was happy to see here. Kirova let them have a few more moments and then stiffly drew Lisa back to her seat. Time for the lecture. It was a good one of the Kirov's best, which was saying something. She was master at them. I swear that was the only reason she had gone into school administration because I had yet to see any evidence of her actually liking kids. The rant covered the usual topics responsibilities, riskless behavior, self consideration, blah blah blah. I immediately found myself spacing out, alternatively pounding the logistic of escaping through the window in her office. But when the tide shifted to me, well, that was when I turned back in. You, Miss Hathaway, broke the most scared promise among our kind, the promise of guardian to protect Moroy. It was a great trust, yet trust that you violated by selfishly taking the princess away from here. The Strigoi could love to finish all your drag Moroys. You nearly enabled them to do it. Rose, don't kidnap me, Lisa spoke before I could, her voice and face calm despite her uneasy feelings. I wanted to go, don't blame her. Miss Kirova tasked at us both and spaced the offers, hands folded behind her narrow back. Miss Dragamorai, you could have been the one who outcrafted the entire plan for all I know, but it was still her responsibility to make sure you don't carry it out. If she could done her duty, she could have notified someone. If she could done her duty, she could have kept you safe. I snapped. I did do my duty, I shouted, jumping up from my chair. Drimmit and Alberto both flinched, but left me alone since I was not trying to hit anyone. Yet, I did keep her safe. I keep her safe when none of you. I made a sweeping gesture around the room. Could do it. I took her away to protect her. I did what I had to do. You certainly was not going to. Through the bond, I felt Lisa trying to send me calming messages, again urging me not to get the best out of me. Too late. Kirova started at me, her face blank. Miss Hathaway, forgive me if I fail to see the logic of how taking her out of a heavily guarded, magical, secured environment is protecting her. Unless there was something you're not telling us. I bet my luck. I see. Well, then, by my estimation, the only reason you left, aside from the novelty of it, no doubt, was to avoid the consequence of that horrible, destructive stunt you pulled just before your disappearance. No, that is not. And that only makes my decision that much easier. As a Moroi, the princess must continue on the academic of her own safety. But we have no such obligation to you. You will be sent away as soon as possible. My cockiness dried up. What? Lisa stood up beside me. You can't do that. She is my guardian. She is no such thing, particularly since she is not even a guardian at all. She is still a known voice. But my parents, I know what your parents wanted. God rest their souls, but things have changed. Miss Hathaway is expandable. She has no deserve to be a guardian and she will leave. I started at Kirova, unable to believe what I was hearing. Where are you going to send me? To my mom in Nepal? Did she even know I was gone? Or maybe you will send me off to my father? Her eyes narrowed at the bite of my last word. When I spoke again, my voice was so cold I barely recognized it. Or maybe you're going to try to send me off to the blood hole? Try that, and we will be gone by the end of the day. Miss Hathaway, she hissed, you're out of your line. They have a bond. Dermot's low, ancient voice broke the heavy tension, and we all turned towards him. I think Kirova had forgotten he was there, but I had not. His presence was way too powerful to ignore. He still stood against the wall, looking like some sort of cowboy centered in the ridiculous long coat of his. He looked at me, not Lisa, his dark eyes starting straight through me. Rose knows what Lisa is feeling, don't you? I at least had the satisfaction of seeing Kirova caught off guard as she glanced between us and Remit. No, that is impossible. That has not happened in centuries. It's obvious, he said. I suspected as soon as I started watching them. Neither Lisa nor I responded, and I averted my eyes from his. That's a gift, murmured Victor from his corner. A rare and wonderful thing. The best guardians always had that bond, added Remit. In the stories, Kirova outraged returned. Stories that are centuries old, she exclaimed. Surely you are not suggesting we let her stay at the academic after everything she has done? He shuddered. She might be wild and disrespectful, but if she has potential wild and disrespectful, I interrupted. Who the hell are you anyway? Outcoast help? Guardian below is the princess guardian now, said Kurova. He, sanctuary guardian. You got sheep fortune labor to protect Lisa? That was pretty mean of me to say, particularly since most Moroi and their guardians were of Russian or Romanian descent, but the comment seemed clever at the time. It really was, and it was not like I was one to talk. I might have been raised in the US, but my parents were foreign born. My vampire mother was caustic, redhead, with a ridiculous accent, and I could be told my Moroi dad was Turkish. The genetic combination had given me skin the same color as the inside of an almond, along with what I like to think were semi exotic desert princess features. Big dark eyes and hair so deep brown that it usually looked black. I could not have minded inheriting the red hat, but we take what we get. Kirova threw her hand up in exploration and turned to him. You see? Completely undisciplined. All the psychobonds and very raw potential in the world could not make up for that. A guardian without discipline is worse than no guardian. So teach her discipline. Classes just started. Put her back in and get her training again. Impossible. She is still be hopelessly behind her piece. No, I won't, I argued. No one listened to me. Then give her extra training sessions, he said. They continued on while the rest of us watched the exchange like it was ping pong game. My pride was still hurt over the ease with which Dermot has tricked us, but it occurred to me that he might very well keep me here with Lisa. Better to stay at the hellhole than to be without her. Nor, though our bond, I could feel her trickle of hope. Who is going to put in the extra time? Demanded Kirova. You? Dermot's argument came to an abrupt stop. Well, that is not what I. Kirova crossed her arms in satisfaction. Yes, that is what I thought. Clearly at loss, he frowned. His eyes flickered towards Lisa and me, and I wondered what he saw. Two pathetic girls looking at him with big pleading eyes, or two runways who broken out of a high security school and swiped half of Lisa's inheritance? Yes, he said finally. I can mentor Rose. I will give her extra session along with her normal ones. And then what? Retorted Kirova angrily. She goes unpunished? Find some other way to punish her, answered Remit. Guardian numbers have gone down too much to risk losing another, a girl in particular. His unspoken words made me shudder, reminding me of earlier statement about Bloodhouse. Few Dampier girls became guardians anymore. Victor suddenly spoke up from his corner. I inclined to agree with Guardian Bullock. Sending Rose away could be a shame or waste of talent. Miss Kirova stared out at her window. It was completely black outside with an academic. No nocturnal schedule morning and afternoon was relatively term. That and they kept the windows tint to block out excess light. When she turned back around, Lisa met her eyes. Please, Miss Kirava, let Rose stay. Oh, Liz, I thought, be careful. Using compulsion on another Morai was dangerous, particularly in front of witnesses. But Lisa was only using a tiny bit, and we needed all the help we could get. Fortunately, no one seems to realize what was happening. I don't even know if the compulsion made a difference, but finally, Kirova signed. If Miss Hathaway stays, here is how it will be. She turned to me. Your continued enrollment at Stein Waldemix is strictly probationary. Step out of the line once and you're gone. You will attend all classes and require trainings for non-voice your age. You will also train with Guardian Below if every spare moment you have before and after classes. Other than that, you are banned from all social activities except meals and will stay in your dorm. Fail to comply with any of this and you will be sent away. I gave a harsh laugh. Banned from all social activities? Are you trying to keep us apart? I nodded towards Lisa. Afraid we will all run away again? I'm taking precautions, as I'm sure you recall you were never properly punished for destroying school property. You have a lot to make up for. Her thin lips tightened into a straight line. You're being offered a very generous deal. I suggest you don't let your attitude endanger it. I started to say it was not generous at all, but then I caught Drummond's gaze. It was hard to read. He might have been telling me he believed in me. He might have been telling me I was an idiot to keep fighting with Kirova. I don't know, looking away from him. For the second time during the meeting, I started at the floor, consciousness of Lisa beside me and her own engagement burning in our bond. At long last, I exhaled and glanced back at the headmistress. Fine, I accept.